Seamus was sitting on her ship after she had collected her bounty, and she was wondering what would her next bounty hunting to be. And suddenly, as her ship detected something on her path, she discovered it was a ship. But as she get closer, it was a ship of an unknown design. She had never seen this type of ship before. But when she scanned the ship, it showed that it was one life sign on board, a human. But at the same time, there were no other. The ship seemed to be just adrift. She had no idea who this human were on this ship and where it came from, because she had never encountered any ship of this design before. But in her mind, this could have been very much new model of a type of ship, or it could have been a custom-made ship. But she wonders, could this be one of those space pirates? But she had no idea. It could have been a civilian ship, it could have been a military ship, but she has no idea. As she getting closer, she was ready to get fired at if this is a trick. But as she gets closer, the ship will still have no power, and it seems to be just still was adrift. But there were no signs of any battle damage on board. The engines were sort of power off, nothing else otherwise, and minimal life support. But she managed to dock with her this strange ship. She looked around and discovered this was ordinarily somehow a minor transport ship, but much of the designs and inside the ship was very unlikely that she has ever seen before, since she had traveled a lot in the galaxy, encountered many types of different ships. But this particular ship was not designed any of the designs she had encountered from the space pirates or any of her bounties. But when she made it into contact, she found the human in a suit that she has never ever encountered before. And she was managed to discover that the person inside the suit was still not alive but unconscious. She tried to power up the ship, but was unlikely to be successful. So she managed to carry this person back to her ship, and while on board, she managed to handcuff this individual just in case if this she could believe this person could have been some sort of a fugitive or perhaps some a criminal who had some huge bounty on it. So she didn't want to take a risk because if this person suddenly wakes up and suddenly attacks her, demand any answers, but she just wanted to take precautions. While this person was still on her ship, she went back to this strange ship to try to figure out where these ships are from and who this person is, but not much very unlikely to be powering ships up. But after much trial, she managed to get this ship in almost operational. But it was so very low power left somehow. But she managed to get access to the ship's computer system, at least as it somehow database. But the database on this ship didn't show much any records. Only this belonged to a soldier by the name John 117, a super soldier, part of some super program or some a super soldier. But in her mind, she never encountered this type of soldier training before. But as she tried to figure out more about this ship's access or database, there wasn't not much records. It was like the ship was just newly built and there's no records of any database from where the ships came from or anything. But there were a star map that she has never seen before. They contained a list of planets, but these planets she had never heard about. But there was one that she knows about, and it was Earth. But the records of other planets were basically none, only showed the names of planets and their destinations. She somehow managed to download a copy of the star map from this computer back to her own. But when she was back to her own ship, she found this person very much awake. He looked at her and demanded answers, and she asked him the same, well, more cautious. She asked who he is, and he just says his name is John 117, or just John. And he asks the same. She explains her name, and then she explains where he's from, and he explains the planet where he's from. And she says she has never heard about this particular planet, or any of the star maps she has rented from his vision. Then he demands get to know it to know where they are. And she said that they were drifting in space. Its ship seems to be no power left. The engines was just turned off, and there was no, and the ship was working on low operational level. But then she explains and asks even him, where is she, where was he from before she found him, and why was he drift in space when he was unconscious? He didn't remember much except that he was traveling from in a fight from this fire team Osiris when he tried to open some sort of hyperspace window and traveling through when they fired his ship. That would explain some of the damage signs she found, but the ship seems at first it didn't have any battle signs, any battle damages, until she did saw some minor discoveries of damage on the engines from behind. But that didn't explain why suddenly his ship was drifted alone. And she never heard about this fire team Osiris before. He explained that they are a team that were hunting down him. And but then suddenly he asked himself, then he realized if they were attacking him and his engine was somehow damaged before he even could do some hyperspace travel, why weren't they at capture him by now? Where are they? He asked if there are any other ships in the vicinity, but she explains there aren't any ships in a vicinity of light years away, which to him seems to be very odd. Why would suddenly the team Five-Star Osiris just fire at his ship and just leave without taking him back in custody? To him that it seems very odd they never could have done that. This was something very unlikely they would ever do. They either have been brought on back to justice for trial, or just killing him and destroy his ship. But they didn't do either. So this to him was very curious. So he then later asked, had she been in contact with United Earth Government? She asked him, what is United Earth Government? The only I know on Earth is Galactic Federation. And he then asked more about that. But then he asked to release him from this table so that he can sit up, which she do, but carefully. Then he realized that something had happened. Then he probably has said, I probably would say this might sound weird, but I am probably guessing this isn't my universe. And she looked at him with a big surprised face, like, what are you even talking about? Kinda like, look. And then he explains, this is only as a theory. What if this fire team Osiris managed to damage his ship during his hyperspace travel, instead from doing it that he was just drop out hyperspace just before he came back to travel? Or what if this damage was during it was occurred exact moment when he jumped into hyperspace and then somehow end up in a different universe? What if the hyperspace window or travel became so unstable, and instead of making his ship to explode from unstable warp time, the hyperspace, but instead end up in a different universe? That is the only explanation to him, though. But Seamus, at first, she didn't even believe at any moment of any of this. She still believed that he was part of a space pirate organization, that he is using a new type of spacesuits and even a new type of ship. But with one part of that her theory not couldn't explain, it's this star map. And some of the technology was very much unlikely that she has ever seen before. Because she had encountered space pirates among several many times, but she had never seen them using this type of technology or this type of star map. So that wouldn't explain rule out that question, but at the same time, a lot of names of the planets in the star map was not on any of her own star maps. So it wouldn't explain suddenly why this particular John where he claims to be from another different universe, but at the same time, it doesn't even make sense in her mind. After they debated more about this, he realized this was the only answer that he can come up with. So he asks her if it was possible they could go back to Earth to prove it, or perhaps go to this planet where he's from on the star map by going to the location, improving if the planet isn't even there, or if there's any star system in that particular area. That it would proving him right. That that planet perhaps doesn't even exist in this particular universe. So luckily, unlucky though for Seamus, but she agreed, really testing this theory. So she sends away to this coordinates this planet where he's from. After several hours of waiting for traveling there, but when they arrived, as a big shocking for Seamus, there were no planets, there were no star, there were nothing, just empty space. It seems like this system didn't even exist. And that would explain most of his theory that he is from a different universe where this star system does exist. But to proving this even right more, she went to another planet on the same star map, but on the same distant. But when she went back to this particular system, that planet or star system didn't even exist either. Which is even more correct evidence confirming that he is from another universe. But she couldn't even explain it though. To her, this doesn't even make sense. Travel from different universes? Or how is it even possible? She asked him if he would like to go back to his own ship, or at least his own universe. But since he had no idea how to replicate this effect, if it was even possible to do at the same time, because repairing this engine on his ship, there would not be 100% guarantee it would even work the second time. Perhaps, perhaps the second time would only make this worse because who knows? Maybe the second time could have made his ship's engines even more unstable and cause explode even beyond his dreams. So they both went back to his ship where they left it. They packed almost of his details from the ship as much as they could. And somehow he decided he would remain in this particular universe. So they both agreed to somehow drag his ship to the closest star and let it burn up in the atmosphere of the star, because leaving that no trace of his old life behind. But there was something about John though, because after they had destroyed his ship and traveling together in this universe, he had no idea what to do. Despite having training to be a super soldier, to be fighting against aliens, this was something new though. He had no idea what to do. Going back to Earth, since his home planet doesn't even exist, go to Earth, probably, since no one in this universe would even recognize him or even know who he is. So this could have been a big opportunity for him to live a peaceful life now. But after seeing how much, even hearing about Seamus travels in the galaxy, that she is a bounty hunter or as she calls space hunter, traveling around getting bounty from different targets. This was something that was very interesting. So he asked her if it was possible that he could join her as a partner or companion in these travels. At first, Seamus was very unlikely that not letting him to be her partner. But after knowing that he is a soldier and that his fighting skills could come in handy at some point, so she luckily agreed to do that. After they first joined Bounty Hunter together, she was very impressed of his military skills. They was very unlike any of her seen before, and that made her that they managed to capture perhaps two to maybe three bounties in one time, which she'd never been able to do before. So they both agreed to be permanent partners. So for the next couple of months, they've been traveling the galaxy. John has started to enjoy his new life as a space hunter along with Seamus. Though there was something about Seamus that he had never expected to be. She was beautiful, very kind to him, even that she could have been very tough or roughing it against him, like to be strict about rules and everything. But he started feeling some sort of affection towards her. It was like they were in love. In fact, that did happen though, only a year after being partners. Seamus had fallen in love with John after that he had saved her from being seriously injured. He treated her well back on his ship and took care of her interests. And for that, she was very deeply grateful for him, but after that, he saved her life. But there was something about him that they couldn't even describe it. He was very strong character. He was very skilled in battles, in different martial arts, but at the same time also very strong character. And for that, there was something about him that made her fall in love with him. Even if there was something about his personality was very unlike any other space hunters she encountered. But from this, he had even installed some of his new upgrades to their ship, like faster engines, like better shields, and even improved some of the most systems on board, which she was very grateful. And since they were together, could collect a lot more bounties together, which she could even do before. But to her, this was a great opportunity. And after being together on there as partners for almost 2 years, she admits to him after they had collected a bounty that she had fallen in love with him. And he even said the same thing back to her. Though he said that he would understand if they would never work out as romantic involved since they're bounty hunters or space hunters together. Since they're partners in this together. She had probably had hoped that he could stay with her. But she also was worried at some point when he probably would decide to leave her and be a space hunter on his own. But after being together for about as partners for 2 years, he said to her that he would not have never thought about doing that since they were both working well together. But since now they were have admitted their true feelings toward each other, he didn't mind to be it as her boyfriend. So, and since they were now traveling around the galaxy and slowly get even more and more getting romantically involved with each other. And this was something that he really enjoyed. But after they had collected a lot of bounty after the months in a 2 months period of time, they went back to Earth for some relaxation, for just to relax, to have some small vacation. Since the space pirates had much, hasn't been much in trouble for them. But back on Earth, though, on their time being there for some sort of vacation, they in fact got married. And after being married and have a small vacation or honeymoon, they still went on their honeymoon, their adventures as space hunters. But after nearly what being married for about 4 years, Seamus discovered she was pregnant. And knowing that the life as a space hunter while being pregnant would be only be discovered be too dangerous, the risk that she could lose the baby, and especially after she had told John about this, and he could not be excited to be a parent, but he agreed. Living as a space hunter, especially for her, it would be too dangerous, especially now she was carrying a baby. So both of them decided to do one more space hunt for bounty hunting before both decide to retire as something else. So after this big space hunting they had, they decided to return back to Earth to live more in retirement. Since she was on since Seamus was employed by Galactic Federation, but she explained to them that she retires now since going to be a parent, and she had decided that she had lived her life as a space hunter long enough. So, in the Galactic Federation at first didn't want to accept it. But after that, she explained that she was in fact pregnant and that she didn't want to risk her unborn baby to be harmed or be orphaned. So, the Galactic Federation agreed to let her go so they could also hire other bounty hunters or space hunters. So after that, John and Seamus spent some of their small fortune of the money they had saved, bought a small house on Earth, which they both agreed to stay, and shortly after the baby was born, and didn't even name the daughter Karen. But when Karen was about 5 years old, Seamus was expecting the second baby, and this time was a boy, and they named him John Jr. But for most of the time on living on Earth, John, this was something very unlike his own planet. But he has actually get used to living on Earth with Seamus and their own new family. But living as a bounty hunter or space hunters for a short time or period, he was very unlikely this was something that he would ever do. Because being a soldier back in his old universe, but and then abandoned it into live as a space hunter, but now living as a peaceful life on Earth was very unlikely that he ever could expect to happen. But he was still very happy to be with someone that he cared about. And that made him really happy to be with Seamus and his two daughters and his two kids. And for Seamus though, she missed her parents that she knows they would have been happy that she is married and have her own family. But both of them agreed this was something that both they wanted to do. To have a family of their own and a living, even they still sometimes missed it to be a space hunters, but they will take their life with their family first as a first priority. They didn't want to put their own kids in jeopardy in a fight or traveling around the galaxy. Even there would have been some sort of experience for their kids to be traveling around the galaxy, encounter new races, new cultures, but at the same time being a risk to be in a firearm or be in a fight, with the knowing there was a possibility they could have been killed. So they had decided it was no longer an opportunity to go back as a space hunter. They both decided to just stay on Earth as normal family do. So that's what they did. John decided to be a teacher in a self-defense in a local school. And James though, she decided to be as a home mother. So she did. But this life at first was very they were used to. But they had a very used get used to it quite well. After their kids was born, they decided this was the life they wanted to have. So that's how Seamus Aran and John found a true love and got the family together. And the end.